what's up, everyone? Welcome back to StrangeCast, Player One vs. the World's Life is Strange podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Adnan. My other co-host, Adam, is here. Adam, you here?
I'm here. I'm overworking myself, but I'm here.
Yes, had a nice Thanksgiving, so obviously happy Thanksgiving to anyone from our American audience. We're now recording on Sunday, 27th of November. Previously attempting to record on Thanksgiving, but we decided to scrap that because a lot of things happened for the two of us. So we were like, right, let's regroup today. So we're recording now. And if you are new here, as always, please do leave us a subscribe, like, turn on notifications, and share with your friends. It helps you keep up to date with our content. And StrangeCast will be available on all podcast services as well. So it's available on Apple Music, it's available on Spotify with a video version, Amazon, everything you want to look at, it's there. And also, in the meantime as well, be sure to check our previous episode, which featured Alejandro Arque, former Square Enix designer who worked on every Life is Strange game. Very insightful chat, very interesting, great guy. Do check it out. Do go and support him at his new ventures at Supermassive Games.
And
so yeah,
he's playing Ali World now.
Yeah. Did you see that Michelle didn't respond to your tweet?
I know. He's trying to ghost me now. Like, Michelle is just like, no, if I don't recognize his existence, I won't play Ali World. So I'm being ghosted by Michelle. So
you should at him again on that tweet and be like,
I am. I'll be like, hey, Michelle. By the way, if you're watching this, Michelle Co, hey, Ali World, it's not too late, buddy. We can do this together as a unit here. Get Adnan in, because Adnan has not played Ali World. So let's join in, like, boy.
I kind of want you to let the Life is Strange developers all play Ali World first. I feel like that's the main objective right now.
Get Adnan to play Ali World. That's my next mission. Hell yeah. That's
gonna be a long mission for you, friend. It's gonna be a long mission.
But here's the thing: if I get you to play before Michelle Co, like, goodness, come on, Michelle, beat Adnan. Come on now.
No, that's a huge influence. Get the Life is Strange director to play. You've already got a producer to play it, and also someone who worked on the game designs on pretty much all of them as well. It's an accomplishment in itself.
Ali World, baby.
So we're back for this episode. We only have one piece of news, then we've got a big topic to talk about. It's been a bit of a slow period for news, obviously, but this one is a little bit more interesting. So I'll take it over to Games Radar first. So I do take this with a grain of salt. This is something that the industry seems to do a lot, the video game industry, where they cover this in journalism. But it's that Deck Nine's next project has fans hoping for a new Life is Strange game, and it's better titled compared to some of the other ones. I've seen a straight up one on Google where it's like a new Life is Strange game is in development. I'm like, is it? Well, anyway,
yeah.
From Games Radar, a series of job listings at Life is Strange True Color studio Deck Nine has fans hoping for a new installment of the supernatural narrative series. As spotted on Reddit, Deck Nine, who took over the development of the Life is Strange series from original developer Don't Nod, is currently hiring a lead programmer, as well as a lead game designer to work on the studio's next title. Most interestingly, both of the job descriptions feature pretty clear hints about the Life is Strange series. In the description for the lead programmer role, Deck Nine says it is hiring people to work on, quote-unquote, an unannounced AAA single-player adventure game, end quote. As for the lead game designer job, this one features the phrase, and I quote, Deck Nine Games is currently hiring a remote lead game designer for our next narrative adventure game, end quote. It should be noted that this isn't necessarily confirmation of a new Life is Strange game, as neither Deck Nine, Don't Nod, nor series publisher Square Enix have mentioned that one is on the way yet. The studio in question also isn't only known for developing games in the choice-based series. However, for those eager for a new Life is Strange games, those descriptions do sound a lot like one. If you're not familiar with Deck Nine, the studio started developing Life is Strange games with a prequel Life is Strange Before the Storm. After this, the studio then worked on the latest game in the series, Life is Strange True Colors, before then going on to work on the Life is Strange Remastered Collection, Joy. Deck Nine is also currently working on the Expanse, a Telltale series, which is based on the Amazon series of the same name and is due for release sometime in 2023. So, a little bit of news there that came recently, now made its way onto IGN and a couple other places. It's interesting because, as I said, job descriptions are always a weird one to cover in the video game industry. People cover them and it's like they're so loose. Obviously, it's, it gives you an insight of what the studio's working on, which is it's an AAA AAA game, single player and in the likelihood of an adventure narrative game. So as we know, it's not a confirmation of a Life is Strange game. But there are probably caveats to say that it is a Life is Strange game, because obviously we know that Don't Nod is no longer associated with the series for the time being. We know that Deck Nine's last project, True Colors, finished around 2020, but its last part of its pre-production on Life is Strange True Colors, which was obviously delayed in itself. But 2020 was around about the time they finished development, maybe even 20. No, I would say 2020 actually. We'll keep it 2020.
Yeah.
So we had a time frame of that. So obviously the development team has got their hands open. I think I've always kind of said on this podcast, or kind of alluded to the fact that they probably have like a plan in place for what they're going to do next. And obviously we know that Deck Nine is working with Telltale on the Expanse. So part of their team will be working on that. But I imagine there's going to be a major bulk of Deck Nine developers that will be working on the new Life is Strange game, if it is a Life is Strange game in development. And probably the other kind of confirmation we have a bit more of is the fact that Square Enix did the focus group they did for the Life is Strange series, the private focus group it hosted with certain people, which was posted online. Probably don't think it should have been posted online, but it was posted online. But yeah, so I think the telling signs are all there, because I don't think Deck Nine's ready to divorce the series right now, and I don't think it has never shown any intention right now. But Square Enix isn't done with the series yet. We've talked about it quite a few times in this podcast. Maybe I think it was the episode before Alejandro, where we were talking about Square Enix's Western ambitions to kind of really keep pushing games. Life is Strange was not one of the games that was sold in the Embracer Group deal, which was obviously a big controversial deal that they sold to the Embracer Group, but they kept hold of Life is Strange. And I imagine True Color sold well enough for the time being for Square Enix to keep investing in the series. But, you know...
Yeah, I was going to say, like, do we know the sales for True Colors? True Colors sales numbers. So I'm just going to Google this real quick.
Have a look, because I've never really seen a full clear indication of them, like, because they actually did it more prolifically with the first Life is Strange. I remember when it hit 1 million copies sold, and they talked about it, but this one's kind of like, I saw it floating around the charts of like different countries, but never like a really clear indication of it. And I don't know if they actually revealed in their fiscal earnings if Life is Strange how many copies it sold, because they might have put in that Q.
Okay, so I'm gonna look. I'm looking on Wikipedia right now, and there's one paragraph on sales that says, on 13th of September 2021, Life is Strange True Colors debuted at number 6 in the UK Games Box sales chart based on physical editions alone, with 54% of sales coming from PS5, 28% from PS4, blah, blah, blah. The MPT Group on September 2021 reports that Life is Strange True Colors ranked at number 10 for the top-selling games within the U.S., which is the highest launch month dollar sales for any Life is Strange title to date. So it sold a pretty penny in the entire franchise. I don't know the exact numbers. It just says like it ranked number 10, it ranked number 6. True Colors. Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing just that one paragraph from.
It was probably the most expensive made, though. That's the other caveat.
That's true. Was any other? Yeah, I don't think any other game was retailed at $60, $70.
No. No. The other ones were digital first. Were both digital first, and all the three were all digital first. Then eventually received retail releases, but they were cheaper. And
according to this site, was released almost 100,000 copies were sold in the first month on the Steam platform. Life is Strange True Color sales during the same period totaled about $5 million. So, okay, it sold pretty well for what it was. So that's important to know, because like you said, I think it's important to know that, because like you said, it doesn't seem that Square Enix wants to sell off the franchise. And I don't think, like you said, I don't think Deck Nine wants to divorce the franchise yet, because it's still selling. So it's quite possible. This isn't a confirmation that's like this news article is a Life is Strange game. It's not really a confirmation. However, the numbers speak, and with everything matching up, that it is a adventure game. It is a AAA from Deck Nine. Chances are pretty high when the sales are like that, when it's sold that well, and we're looking at an adventure game. My meter is leaning towards this could be the next Life is Strange game that they're developing.
Yeah, it would make sense. Like, there's no kind of indication that Deck Nine is working on anything else aside from what would be a Life is Strange game. And like Square Enix are pretty brutal with like their history with like games that don't sell well, like with Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. Despite getting critical acclaim, like they've been very critical of it not making sales numbers that they want. So I do wonder how much their full cost of True Colors was to develop, because it is probably, as I said, the most expensive out of the other games that have been made because of the advancements that they've done, and hence why they slapped AAA price on it. But yeah,
I will say this: like I'm looking at the two jobs they're listing, lead programmer and lead game designer. So they're just hiring these roles if it is the next Life is Strange game, which means, this is, if it is the next Life is Strange game, we are real early in development, like super early. So I don't think we're going to be seeing this until probably
Consider how long the gap between 2 and True Colors was. It was about 3 years.
Longer than 3 years. You're right. Yeah, 3 years.
Yeah.
So like the earliest I say we could say this, like the earliest is like late 2025, probably. Like that would be my earliest guess.
2024 would be my guess at this point. 2025 at a push. But
that's the thing. We're not going to get this game next year. We're not even going to see a trailer for it next year. I think we're going to see a trailer for it maybe spring of 2024. Like that's what's going to be it. And I will be.
They'll probably do.
I was going to.
They'll probably do what they did last time with True Colors.
Yeah. Like a little teaser.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not even like show the full game. They're just going to show like a character silhouette.
Because I imagine that like things will leak about this, because like a lot of the stuff with True Colors started to leak before it came out, and I imagine that this will happen again if we see trickle down information over the next couple of weeks, months, years, that will kind of give us the clearer indication that this game is in development and it's also a Life is Strange game. So yeah, I think like the strong hint is going to be it's going to be a Life is Strange game from them. I'd be very surprised if it isn't, because then it would make me wonder who the hell's working on the series after that. But like, my more interest is on how long Deck Nine will be associated with the series with. I don't think it's going to be long term. I could see them being out of Life is Strange before the end of the decade. Maybe like 2026, 27. Like, depends on what happens to it. But I just don't see them being that long in it. I just don't know how long Life is Strange will really go, if I'm being brutally honest. I think like sales wise, it's done fine from what we could see from there. Yeah. But the fan base and the popularity isn't as strong as it once was when I was really interested in the series. And I think like there's questions to be raised about that. Because I feel like fandoms keep franchises really popular. Like even like in history, some of the ones that I've gone through really poor periods, including like Resident Evil, still has a huge fan base behind it and will continue to support it. Even like defunct kind of like, or dormant kind of like series like Metal Gear still has a huge fan base behind it. Halo, huge fan base behind it. Life is Strange has that, but it's kind of been trickled down a little bit since, because of the Don't Nod departure, the Don't Nod game styles, the different iterations of Life is Strange. Like, I know people weren't really huge fans of 2. I know some people weren't fans of True Colors. There's quite like a lot of divisive opinions in the community with it. So it's like the community doesn't have the same resonance for me as it did in like 2015 or 2017 when Before Storm came out, or even 2018 to an extent as well.
I was going to even say that like the fan base was younger when this came out. Like I was 24 years old when the first game came out. 23 or 24, 20, around that age. I don't know how old I am. But yeah, now we're getting older, and I'm going to make the argument that Life is Strange isn't really setting themselves up for the younger generation to pick up this franchise. It's not really, it's a very niche like it's a very niche game. I don't think there's a
Yeah.
lot to say. Whereas, like you said, with Metal Gear, Resident Evil, Halo, I could argue those are for the younger generation as well, especially Halo. It's just like a
Yeah.
multiplayer shooter. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's people way younger than me that played Halo Infinite and really loved it, and I was just like, I
Mhm.
can't stand that game. I hate Halo Infinite. It's so dumb. But like the younger generation loves it. But it made itself available for the younger generation. And Resident Evil as well. It's setting itself up for the younger generation. It's remastering its old game so that the younger generation get into it. There's just so much to say, but Life is Strange, I don't really think it's setting itself up for the young generation of gamers. And the older generation of gamers, like me and you, I don't know. We're just kind of getting dormant with it. It's just kind of getting stale. And I think that's part of it not revitalizing itself. So the younger generation doesn't care about it. And the old generation is kind of like, what's new?
Yeah, what you're saying is spot on, because that's how I feel about it. Like it went. I always make the comparison with True Colors. True Colors went to Force Awakens too early.
Yeah.
Like it basically like two is a tough pill to swallow. But let's be real, the sales numbers, even me not even looking up, I know it didn't sell as well as the first Life is Strange. Just
Well,
not even.
I think if it
or if it did sell, it rode on the success of the first Life is Strange, but it nowhere near carried on. Like the development was different on it. The way the marketing is done on it, Square Enix's kind of consideration for Sean and Daniel, like they never front and center of promotional material. They care more about Max and Chloe. Max and Chloe are always treated as the mascots of the series, and fair enough in that sense. But Sean and Daniel usually get any kind of mention when they basically tweet out artwork or tweet out a sale or something. So it's like you see very little kind of promotion of it. I always said like I'd fall off this chair if like there was an announcement of like a Life is Strange 2 remaster. I would absolutely be mortified and shocked, because I just never ever would expect something like that. And I think like that, just the way that they did True Colors as well. Like as I said, like I have no quarrels with Deck 9. I like Deck 9. BTS was great and everything else with it, and like some of the beats in True Colors were really enjoyable. The acting was great, obviously, but having spoken to so many of the members of the cast, all really lovely human beings, but it just didn't sit right with me when I was playing it. It took too many beats from the first Life is Strange, and it felt like a little bit of a regression of like, I don't know if it came from the developers or the publisher or whoever it came from. It felt like you were basically, because something worked once was success, we went back and tried to replicate the formula, but yet audiences change and styles change. You can't do it. And Square Enix, more so than anyone else, has a huge history with making these kind of like really like, I don't know what kind of word is, like just like brash decisions maybe, or like kind of like unusual decisions, if anything. Like they did it with Final Fantasy repeatedly so many times.
Yeah,
the safety would be better on safety decisions. Like even with like when I always bring up Final Fantasy as an example from what they did with like the 13 trilogy. Like Lightning, the protagonist in the game, was no different from Cloud Strife. They really tried to make her the female equivalent of Cloud Strife, and it just didn't work. And they made 3 mainline iterations of Final Fantasy 13. It still just didn't catch on with people. They even had Final Fantasy 13 Versus, which was later redeveloped as Final Fantasy 15. And the series of Final Fantasy 15 really hasn't got back on track since they've done the remake of Final Fantasy 7. Like now they've kind of got a bit of a springboard, and obviously they've got 16 coming out. But it's kind of like a bit more of a pathway back for the series. But they kind of went through a bit of confusion of 13. Like there was just like the franchise lost its identity a little bit. And that's not even saying me that I don't like 13 as a game. It's like there were just like certain things that it just really stripped back on Final Fantasy in different ways. And it's like, stick to your core, stick to what works, and that's kind of it. But you do need to evolve and change. Like, and that's the thing with Life is Strange, True Colors. It's like there's too many beats there. Like there's too many similarities between Alex and Max, and like the way that the story's told in Haven, like the murder mystery kind of dynamic, and this and that. Like you can, like I can like roll them off, Jettison and all that kind of things. It really like. There's so much there for me to unpackage that. That's why I always refer to it to people. I'm like, it's the Force Awakens moment of the series. It's so J.J. Abrams' Star Wars. Like, let's play it safe. Let's try and do like a lot of the same beats. But then it's not the same game you played in the first one. And I was basically one of those people who got to Life is Strange 2, played it, and I was like, you know what? It feels a bit different, but I'm ready to accept it. And then the more the story got on, I was like, oh, I really enjoy this. I like the story. The angle is ambitious, it's bold, it's going that kind of way. And I think like even the Donut team has expressed that. Like, you know, their clear indication was we stop at Max and Chloe. We're going to go a different route. They went with a different kind of like direction with this series, and that's what they should have kept with like with Square Enix. It sometimes feels like it's like the Deck Nine has put a bit of a stamp on the series itself, saying like we're going to now helm the games, but then they're taking so much of the don't nod beats from the first Life is Strange. It's like I'm still waiting for Deck Nine to have free restraint and to make their own Life is Strange game. It's like, oh right, okay, we now have this kind of identity. It still feels like it's lingering in its shadow. It reminds you of the Call of Duty formula for a long period of time. Activision, Treyarch, like they were basically kind of back and forth. One was living in the shadow of the other. It's like just give the studio freedom to put their own mark. It's like this is a Call of Duty game from Treyarch. This is a Call of Duty game from Infinity Ward. This is a Life is Strange game from Don't Know. This is a Life is Strange game from Deck Nine. So like I'm in that vein, and it's like, as I said, like I just this next game, I feel weird with it because it's like even now thinking about it like this far ahead, it's like, do I really want to buy it at launch?
Yeah.
It's like, if I didn't host this podcast, I wouldn't really buy it at launch because I'm like my taste for the series is a little bit like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's so hard to explain. Like I'm not even saying like it's like, as I said, I always have to reiterate in these conversations.
Well,
I don't hate True Colors. It just feels like I feel like why is this? Like I'm more excited. For example, this is weird to even say. I'm more excited about Don't Know Montreal's game than Life is Strange at the minute. Like my entire focus is on what they're doing in Canada than what's on Life is Strange. And I feel like, and that's not maybe obviously that's because they made Life is Strange like Luke, Michelle, and Donut team, but I'm more excited about it. I'm like intrigued by it because it's like it's something that's a fresh lick of paint. Like as I said, like with Life is Strange 2, they went with a lick of paint on the series. It was so different. Like it just had the name of the series, the IP, and it's like this is kind of like what they're doing with that VHS tape. It's like a lick of paint of like something new, and you see it and you're like, oh, I want to play with that. So I want to play with something new.
That's exactly my point. Is that like at least with Don't Nod and like Luke and Michelle, right? At least they're setting themselves up for something new and refreshing. And I think that's why like these franchises that you listed up before, Resident Evil, Metal Gear, and Halo, whether we agree with those decisions or not, it's setting itself up for the future. And that's what exactly what Luke and Michelle did. And Raul, wherever you are, Raul Barbe. But I still stand by that he's on Mount Everest with a beard. Like, I'm pretty sure that's where he's at. But yeah, that's exactly my point. Is that at least they did something different. At least they did something different, and they were setting themselves up for something new for their audiences, which was Life is Strange 2. And as much as I didn't like it when it first launched, at least I recognized, like you were saying, like, well, it's different, but here we go. At least there was something different. At least like it was setting himself up. And like you said, with the VHS files, they're setting themselves up for something new and something refreshing, you know, whereas Life is Strange is just kind of like, okay, here we go. Another one. Like this, Life is Strange 2 was setting itself up for something new so much that it set itself up for a demo with a character that I really got attached to, which is Captain Spirit. Like I got attached to the game demo, you know, at least they were doing that. But right now, Square Enix, the way they're seeing things is just something safe. And they're very, very well-known catchphrase. It didn't meet our sales expectations. It didn't meet our sales expectations. Every single release, they're like, didn't meet expectations. It's just like, what the heck, dude? I still remember they said that about
industry.
Yeah, like I think Avengers, they said that it didn't meet their expectations, and it was like number one in the sales charts, like in the month that it came out. I was like, "What are your sales?" By the way, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remastered, they came at number 2 on the sales charts, right underneath Avengers. So, just saying, if you want to play another skateboarding game, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater Remastered. Anyways, but
speaking of Tony Hawk's 2, that's kind of an example of it because it's like the Tony Hawk is like by definition almost like like an artifact now for us. Like when we pick up a VHS tape, it's like for us, like we know what it is, but it's like a new generation of audience. And Tony Hawk doesn't have that same kind of like that same kind of charm as it did, because obviously we're in a different time period, different kind of like generation. But Tony Hawk will do well, and it did well. But also the fact that this is when we were like talking about a publisher like Activision. Activision just makes a killing off of like Call of Duty and Candy Crush and all of its other stuff. So it can compensate for losses in sales on one franchise for another. And that's why I always say, like, with examples of like Remember Me with Capcom, like that just bombed for Capcom. They were not happy with it. And when like Resident Evil went really faltered, like we didn't even know if we would see a Resident Evil game until 7. Like they have so many interviews now where we talk about the Resident Evil 7 developers when they're talking about turning to first person. So there's just so much expectation on them. They just didn't know how people would receive it and whether it had the same kind of like renaissance revival for the series as it has done. And it's the same with Square Enix. Square Enix will do well in certain things. Excuse me, but like it won't when sales go down, then they start panicking, because it's like, we need strong numbers. We don't generate the same kind of numbers as a kind of like as a Activision or even a Take-Two. So like, even with Take-Two at the minute, Take-Two's tanked a lot of money, if you've seen it, like because of their Zynga acquisition. They're not making as much money. The growth has kind of come down and stuff, but their catalogue of games include BioShock and Grand Theft Auto. When they come out, numbers are going to go up.
Yeah. No, it's
oh no, go.
No, it's definitely they're not seeing it from that perspective. I don't think that. I just think that the video game industry, like you said, it's just drowning itself out with old safe numbers. Which again, if you ever went to business school, if you ever took a business class, yes, that's the right move. Like if you want to continue making money, like for example, Adnan, you're into stocks, you're into the stock market. I was just gonna say, man, like, what would you say? It's just kind of like, would you rather take a risky stock, or would you rather take a safe stock in terms of like you want to save up
a safe one?
That's the thing.
Take the safe one. Yeah.
And that's the thing with business, take the safe route. With stocks, take the safe route. And unfortunately, video games are a business. And I say that with a burning passion. Unfortunately, it's a business. In the same way that like with my music, like one, I don't think I'll ever be signed because my music is crappy. But I don't know if I would. I know you're shaking your head there. But I don't know if someone ever wanted to sign me. Honestly, I would be super hesitant because there's so much greatness to be indie that there. Because again, the music industry is what we call a business, and it's just like anything that you put out, it has to be safe. Which is why you ever think that like, oh, pop music, it's all the same. Oh, it's not real music. In some ways, no, it's not real music. You're right, but in most ways, yes, because you have to understand music theory to make a hit song. That's beyond the point. The point I'm trying to make is that when you're saying that, oh, it's just so vanilla. Yeah, for a reason, because music is a business. Same thing with video games. It's the exact same thing. If you play a video game and say, oh, it's so vanilla, like Call of Duty. Yeah, you're absolutely right, because once again, in business, in stocks, and everything, you're just trying to take the safe route. By the way, can we make this the main topic? I feel like we can go on for an hour about this. I'm pulling an audible here.
God.
Yeah.
Because as you said, like even starts, it's hard to project what you happened in like 5-10 years. Like anything can happen. It's like with even like the first Life is Strange. You take that for example, they got rejected by publishers, quite a few. And it's like then eventually Square Enix agreed to take the gamble on it, and it's a gamble that obviously worked out very well for Square Enix and Don't Know, but more so for Square Enix, because it goes into that kind of caveat which we were talking about with the music industry. Your IP is more valuable than the sales numbers and everything else. Biggest success I've always said, like in history, has always been that like George Lucas retained the rights to Star Wars. It was more than anything they could have paid him. Bigger deal, more lucrative for anything. And the simple fact is that if you go up to these publishers, then you sell your soul of it. It's the same with like those interviews that we talked about with Don't Nod. It's like they kind of like allude to a very interesting relationship with Square Enix on these contracts to work on the IP that they create, but they no longer own the IP because they had to sell it in an attempt to fund it. Sorry. But yeah, they had to sell the IP to fund it, and it's the same with like any time in industry. Look at, for example, like you look at someone who had unbelievable success, like Taylor Swift, and she had a long pursued battle over her album and rights and everything else in her back catalogue, which she only recently got back. So it's like you look at, for her, sales numbers mean nothing because she's going to make a lot of money from new albums, but her old catalogue was like locked behind bars for a long period of time before she actually got a hold of them. Then she re-recorded all the songs, didn't she? And it's the kind of like, it's the main kind of like problem we encounter with this. And this is the thing with like Square Enix. It's like the series will continue, but I'm like my fear at the minute is sitting almost like very comparatively to Capcom with Dead Rising, where basically it kind of like continues for a long period of time. It really starts losing any identity of what the series is, and eventually gets shelved. And we don't see it for a very long time. Like we haven't even seen that game or franchise for a long time. No. And like that's the thing with Life is Strange, that it needs to kind of go bold. It needs to be new. Like in itself, I get it, because like you take Life is Strange 2 as a pitch, and you take it to another developer or publisher, whoever's going to think it. Most people are just going to be like, "Nah, I'm not even going to take a punt on this. Not a chance." But you kind of need something like that in a series like Life is Strange, because you need to give it a new kind of thing and then be like, okay, the next one's going to happen. We're not going to do that, but we're not going to go too close to the first one. Let's take it a bit more down the adventure route, etc. and all this. But instead, it was like, with Life is Strange 1, it was like, yeah, it's the adventure game. It's the one that really tantalized people, etc. Prequel comes out, does the same thing, everything else. Life is Strange 2 has parts of that, but it's very different, goes down a different route, is going to divide people. And then Life is Strange True Colors comes out, and Life is Strange True Colors is just very much a kind of like, we'll borrow your homework kind of thing from the first Life is Strange.
Yeah, and that's just it.
Sorry, I got a really bad cough.
Yeah, and that's just it. Like, I was even going to say that, like, it's fine if you want to go down that route, and they tried to make it somewhat new with a new setting and a new power and everything. Like, I get that, but sometimes you just got to take that next step route. And I gotta like feel like Luke and Michelle don't want to even touch Life is Strange IP anymore. They just kind of want to keep it the way it is. I'm not trying to speak for them, but like it almost seems like they just want to keep it as is. And I think that's why they're so passionate about this new project, because again, they're going somewhere new. They wanted to go somewhere new with Life is Strange 2, and now they're going somewhere new. And again, they're setting themselves up as artists to be like, hey, I want to put something new out there, whether you want it or not. Like, this is something new, which I can relate to in a small part. I guess I'll save that for Spread the Arts, but
you're right, because it's very indicative of the way that Don't Nod has done its position with these kind of games that's coming out, like the 6 games it has in its catalog. Like, majority of them are self-published. I kind of like said time again, I don't know if I said it off podcast or on podcast, but I've always said like the expectations are biggest on the Montreal game. That'll be the one that they expect to be the numbers. But they're basically signing up all these games because if they get another Life is Strange hit, they want the IP. They want to make it in-house. They don't want to get into, like, dealing with these publisher kind of relationships are just long and tiring. The only one that they're making an exception for is with Focus, but they know that Focus, for example, the relationship they had for Vampire, which made a lot of money for them and also brought in royalties, etc., has been beneficial for them. So they're like, let's continue that partnership. That's fine. But they don't basically want to put their hands in with, like, let's do a Bandai Namco game. Let's do a Take-Two game. Let's do a, Activision game. Let's do all these kind of publishers, because you're basically putting your hands in too many pockets. Then you lose all the IPs. Don't Nod is positioning itself as a publisher and a developer. And to build a publishing arm, you need your own IPs as well, because Gerda, the one that's coming from Tiny Bull, these are just micro games. And that's not even in a disrespectful way. They are independent, small studios. They're publishing the games, and it's giving them a kind of a taste of that world of publishing, because obviously, again, Twin Mirror didn't sell well. That's the big concern I have with Don't Nod position at the minute, where it's like their fiscal earnings, everything else with it. They have a huge stake from Tencent. I've always been very critical of that, but they have a huge stake from Tencent in there. It's like the games that they have and what they're growing to be, the games that have sold well, Life is Strange and Vampire. They're the two main ones. Obviously, another one, Tell Me Why, but was published by Xbox, by Microsoft. Microsoft owns the IP, and that was kind of like a risk-free kind of like adventure for them. Twin Mirror didn't sell as well as they expected, so it's been hit and misses. And obviously, every studio is going to have hit and misses, and especially for like even like a Life is Strange game. But it's like with like Deck Nine. Deck Nine is more associated now with Life is Strange. I don't think many people would even be able to tell you any of the games Deck Nine made before Life is Strange, Before the Storm. Yeah, and they've become heavily entwined with it. But like the first kind of like, for me, indication for anyone to like look out that Deck Nine has big ambitions, and in the same way as like Don't Nod is to look at what they're doing with The Expanse. Like that came out the blue. That came out massively out the blue, and it's like, oh, actually, sounds really quite promising. Like this is something that Deck Nine's kind of like positioning itself with. And it's the same as well when we talk about when Chris Floyd left as well. Like his vision of leaving Deck Nine was in line with what he wanted at that time. He didn't feel the direction of the company went the way that he wanted. Kind of paraphrase, not to speak for him, but just to kind of paraphrase what he was trying to say. Like he saw a different kind of vision for himself rather than what Deck Nine was doing.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is the thing with like this new Life is Strange game. We might as well just make this the main topic. Actually, I agree with you now. We're gonna do this. Like we'll move out of a topic for another time. Might as well just do it because there's so much to talk about with it anyway. But it's just like I just don't know. They need something to recapture this series. I just have a really funny feeling that Life is Strange, by the time we get to 2024, 2025, I mean, is their fan base going to be too old for it? Are they ever going to attract a new fan base for it?
Like 2024, I'm going to be... Okay, so I'm 31 now, so I'll be 33, 33, turning almost 34 at this time. And it's just like... Am I really so? Yeah, like think about it that way. If it comes out in 2025, right, that will be 10 years of Life is Strange. 10 years. Like we're like that. That's the thing. Like you can have your favorite food of all time, and to eat that same food with no variation for 10 years, you're gonna get pretty sick of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like even with one of my favorite dishes, chicken, rice, and beans. It's just literally just chicken, rice, and beans like that. I'll eat that all day, every day. I'll still put variations to it. Like I'll put some saffron in that. I'll saute some pepper. Like I'll put in something new, but it's still chicken, rice, and beans. But if I really just had white rice, black beans, and just chicken breast, just put it in there, maybe some adobo. Every day for 10 years, it's just going to be like, okay, I'm tired of this. You're going to want variation. You know what I mean? Speaking as a chef, I know, like I'm a chef and like my favorite dish is chicken, rice, and beans. Sue me. But like, honestly, it's the same thing with video games. If you're going to have a video game for 10 years, you want that same base. You still want that chicken, rice, and beans base, but you want some variation to it. You want some flavor. You want something new, but you still love that dish. You just want some new flavor. Yeah. And that's the problem. That was the big problem with True Colors. It was like the same dish that you had, doing my math here. When did it come out? 2021. So 7 years ago. Yeah. So like 6-7 years ago, like you're having the same dish. True Colors, 2021.
Yeah, it's not 7 years ago, that.
No. I mean, like, the first Life is Strange.
Oh, it'll be 7 years ago now.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, so, like, 6 years before that, you had the same dish, and now you're 6 years later, you're having the same dish. It's kind of like, come on, you want some pickup here. It's the same reason why I can't stand pickles. I don't like pickles. It's because in Pennsylvania. I don't like pickles because in Pennsylvania, where I grew up, I grew up in Philadelphia, but the entirety of Pennsylvania is very German. There's a lot of pickles. There is so much pickle.
You're one of those beans who takes the pickle off a cheeseburger at McDonald's, aren't you?
No, I'll eat pickles if it's on my burger. No, I'll like if it's on my sandwich, I'm gonna eat it, but like I'm not gonna be the one to request pickles. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to be like, if a pickle's on my plate, I'll tend not to eat it, but it won't be like, ugh, no pickles.
I wouldn't put it on the plate. Like, I'd have it on a burger. But I knew a girl once who used to eat raw pickles.
That's Pennsylvania,
like,
dude. Like there's a city in Pennsylvania that when New Year's comes, they don't drop the ball. There is a pickle that they drop. They drop the pickle. Like there is pickles in Pennsylvania are very much, but like you have pickles all the freaking time, and eventually you're just like, no more, and everyone else like pickles. I'm like,
I can't stop thinking of that Clerks 2 scene with Pickle Fucker.
Yeah, it's just like it's
just
so...
when you keep mentioning pickle, I was like, oh, Adam was like, please stop mentioning pickles. I don't actually
see though, like I mentioned pickles, everybody's like pickle Rick, and I'm like, oh my god, here we go again.
Let's put this back onto Life is Strange. Move away from.
But that's what I mean, though. You have the same thing over and over and over and over again. You eventually get tired of it, and I think that's like you could go back to me on the argument of like, why is Call of Duty so successful? At least it's some variation. Like it is still chicken, rice, and beans. It is still Call of Duty every time. But I'm going to argue it's not as copy and paste as people put it out to be. It's definitely not.
Let's bring that into a bit more of this, because I've basically got Modern Warfare 2 at the minute. This is the first Call of Duty I've played since Ghost. I haven't bought Modern Warfare 2. Someone gave me the code, so I downloaded it, and I have it on my PlayStation. I played it basically for the last 2 months, or whenever it's since it's come out. I played it religiously, just as a kind of downtime thing. So this is my first mainline Call of Duty game since Call of Duty Ghost. Ghost was the last time I stopped playing the series because I got dissatisfied with it. Yeah. And I was a Call of Duty fiend. I loved Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops, World at War, COD 4. I played those religiously in my childhood. So when playing it, it felt a bit different. Like when I went into it, I was like, you can't say it's the same copy and paste thing. Maybe like the last 3 or 4 might feel similar, but if I'm comparing on the spectrum of me playing Call of Duty Ghost last, which was I think like maybe 2013, compared to playing Modern Warfare 2 in 2022, it's evolved. There's Warzone in there. It's massive. Like they obviously saw the success of like battle. They've got a battle royale mode. They've seen the success of Fortnite. They've put these modes in there. There's like a 64-man ground war mode in there as well. Like compared to what I was playing 10 years ago, that's what we were hoping to see I was seeing as a kid. What I'm seeing now, like back then, that would have been like, oh, it would have been unbelievable. So it's like they basically have evolved that franchise. That's why it's still stayed successful. Like Call of Duty withstanding the test of time is huge. Huge. Yeah. Most people would have thought that series would have fallen out a long time ago. I remember people saying the Battlefield killer was coming and all this. EA hasn't even touched it. Like it's still selling huge amounts. And even Bobby Kotick was saying it in the earnings reports. Like they were saying that it's one of the fastest selling games in the franchise since like I think it was Modern Warfare 3.
Yeah.
800 million they made or something like near launch. It was like it's insane, and it's like it's huge numbers for that. Obviously now shows as well why Activision Microsoft is very keen on that deal, even though Phil Spencer keeps saying it will be on PlayStation, but that's a whole different conversation. That we'll keep that away from this podcast, because otherwise, like, you know, and I do have a preference. I do own shares in Activision as well, so it's like I need to kind of be clear about that, because like I feel very differently with Jim Ryan because he's a little bitch. But anyway,
and you do own a PS5. You don't own any sales, but you own a PS5.
I own a PS5. Like the way he's crying about it, I'm like, Jim Ryan, get a fucking grip. Anyway,
I know.
But like when you mention that conversation, it's really important, because like that is an example of Call of Duty evolving in the way that Life is Strange needs to evolve. But it's like you need to, and I'm not saying like Life is Strange needs an online multiplayer mode or something like ridiculous like that. Co-op could be an option where you could actually like explore the option of that. But it's like basically it's like the series needs to keep moving forward, and there were like obviously a lot of beats that it took from the first Life is Strange. But the other thing was that I was kind of being built up for like, oh, they've slapped a $60 price tag on it. It's like AAA, like we're going full stream. And then we get into True Colors and it's an L-shaped town. And I'm like, it's a very restrictive town, this. It's like very restrictive. It's like you've built up Haven Springs in my mind quite bigly, but then it's like I'm coming down. It's like, is this town just an L shape? It's like, why can't I explore more? It's like I expect to see a bit more. Like it needs to. They could basically take a break from the series and like spend 4 or 5 years on it and make it into a mini open world hub. Like in the same way, like if you're constructing Arcadia Bay, you could link and move all the way across places. Mini open world hub. Not a huge open world game, but mini open world hub. And then in there, you have like little side missions. Because I was hoping in there, in like, for example, True Colors, you did like little mundane kind of like activities where you could like basically.
Yeah. Like little favors.
Like, or you become like a shopkeeper for the day at like,
like the record store.
At Charlotte's like a drugstore, or you could look after the you could do like a DJ kind of like challenge. Like, do you like when you do I'm playing a lot of Yakuza at the minute. Like when you do the karaoke, you press the button prompt when they're singing and stuff like that. Like a lot of mini games that have been heavily influenced by English, Japanese games.
I don't know if you haven't. You haven't played Night in the Woods, have you?
No.
Okay, so Night in the Woods is a great example. Like there are side missions. So, okay, for one, I know the whole controversy with the composer of Night in the Woods. It's kind of sketchy. I get that, but trying to separate the art from the artist, because that was a pretty sticky situation. I don't want to bring up, but you can Google it if you want to. But yeah, with Night in the Woods, it was such a great game where Adnan, you'll have to play Night in the Woods. You liked my recommendation of Oxenfree. You'll like Night in the Woods because it's like a Life is Strange game. And it deals with depression and no, I'm trying to remember the mental issue. Oh no, disassociation. Thank you. So thank you, Brain. But it has to do with like disassociation and everything. But here's the greatest part: there's exploration. It actually allows you, and not only allows you, but encourages you to do little things. Like there's one thing, like every other day as the week goes on, right? Every other day, you can go onto the roof with your old like science teacher and look into stars, and like through a telescope, you can just like look at stars in the sky like every other day. It's like, oh, come back another night. And then every other night you can go up and then you can look for more stars. There's another one where you can visit your mom in a church. You find a homeless guy in the back of the church. This is all like side stuff. There is on your laptop, you go into your room and you go into your laptop and there is like a side scrolling Demon Slayer kind of game. And it's just like a little side game that you can go on your laptop and just play with. You can play your bass in your room. There's so many different side activities and different people that you can interact with other than the main mission. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about with what Night in the Woods did. Night in the Woods like actually put out like, go talk to this person, but it doesn't force you to talk to these people. You have to go out of your way and explore the world and talk to these people that are around the world. And I think that's kind of like what you're talking about here. It's just like, hey, like, we're not going to force you to, but there's people you can talk to. Go ahead, talk to the people. But yeah, you'll have to check that out sometime.
Yeah, I will, because like that's kind of like, that's indicative of how I felt about True Colors. Like they slapped up a huge price tag on it. And it's no different from the first Life is Strange, the second Life is Strange, or Oxenfree, the way that it plays, because it's very streamlined. And it's like, I don't mind playing a very linear kind of game and very streamlined, narrative-driven, and unfazed by like not having huge like little hub activities, whatever else in between it. But I'm paying a lot less for it. So when you slap up the price tag on like True Colors, and it's playing pretty much like the only thing that True Colors has is the collectibles, really. Like. You interact with them and it gets you trophies. It's almost exact same that we've been doing the first Life is Strange and 2. Like, has it really changed much? But it's like there's not like a huge amount of like little activities you can do in the town, or kind of like keep you interested. Like as you said, like have one of those kind of things that's like, oh, come back tomorrow and we'll see something different. Like there's nothing there. We have a big town now. You have a town. Interact with it. Like create those kind of things with it. It's like otherwise it's just like, oh well, we'll just follow Alex and just do this and that, and like it felt too rigid at times, and it's like. That wasn't what I wanted. Like the series has to evolve now. Like it's evolved in motion capture and also in terms of like the acting and voiceovers, etc. All that is now evolved. But the next evolution has to be on gameplay, because it's like otherwise, what I'm finding is in what year we're in 2022. Say if it's around 2 years in 2024, who's to say I'm still playing games? Who's to say you're playing games? Who's to say this podcast still exists? They could lose more people from the audience of what the franchise is. And then basically the sales numbers they're getting, like the people I saw playing Life is Strange True Colors, and not sound hipster, were kind of like people that they had basically targeted in the mainstream and had bought it. And it didn't have, as we spoke about with Alejandro in the last episode, and he said about that, that kind of quote I pulled up where he said the first Life is Strange was very Sundance kind of film, and it don't know, weren't too scared about it being too indie. That kind of aesthetic has been lost a bit. Like, and you see it with other games. Look at Oxenfree. it built a cult following because of its success of what it had. Like the Life is Strange developers put it in Life is Strange 2 as an Easter egg, an example of like a kind of like hit to come out of it. It has a following of fans.
Do we have a release date for Oxenfree 2 yet?
Did they not delay it?
Yeah, initial release date 2023, but like I don't think we ever got like an official.
Well, like as I said, that game now is going to have like such a big following ready for people to buy it at launch. They don't even have to appeal for a mainstream narrative. I just saw it with like the way that they were targeting the adverts. It's like they were giving it like the Life is Strange 1. I always said like benefited from people like Jacksepticeye and like PewDiePie and these people play it because it was a niche indie game or niche looking indie game.
Yeah.
And these people promoted it, and that kind of took it off into another stratosphere. And people enjoyed it because when they played it, they were like, oh, actually, this is what I want. But now it's like AAA, hugely production values. They're giving it to some random cookie cutter streamers, which I've been watching. And I'm like, just like, with my hands in my head, I'm like, all right, okay, is this part of the marketing campaign to sell Life is Strange?
Yeah.
True Colors. It's like, it doesn't have that same kind of like thing. And it's indicative of like the next Life is Strange will be telling about where the series goes. If anything, like if this Deck 9 game comes out and the way the fans receive it, you could see a massive influx of fans. You could see a large influx of large exodus of fans in the series. You could see it try to basically be one of those games that comes out and it's like on the shelf and then someone might buy it potentially as like a kind of it's a AAA game. It comes out value. And then it'll give you clear direction of it. Because as I said to you before, nothing's sacred in this industry anymore. Never has been, to be honest, actually. And you will probably see remakes of Life is Strange 1. I would probably my best guess is that whether the series goes, whether it's success or negative, eventually we'll get a remake of the first Life is Strange, and then depending on sales numbers and everything else, then Square Enix will shelf the series for God.
Yeah.
But like. I am curious about what they actually do with this game. Like, I hope they recruit. Obviously, I'm excited for what they're doing on obviously the Expanse, and still in my heart of hearts, I'm excited for a new Life is Strange game. But like, you feel it, man. You feel it. Like even this podcast a little bit. Sometimes it's like we do it for so long, and you do feel fatigue coming back to it. Like, there's not been a huge amount of like, there's been no Life After Strange episodes since my one with Danielle Vivatis, but it's like Katie Benz. Katie was the last one, but it's like that will come back next year. But I'm basically fatigued. It's like we'll come back to it at some point. I need to kind of like reinvigorate myself with the series, because otherwise it's like you're doing the same thing every week. You're like,
yeah,
you feel it. And I will say this as well to people: if you are listening, we really appreciate you being here. Set up a podcast and do 5 episodes on the same subject and tell me how you feel, because sometimes I come on here, I'm like, oh wow. We talk about Life is Strange.
Groceries. Like Games Groceries at least was different. Like we talked about a different game or a different guest every time. And even then, after 100 some odd episodes, like we got really tired of just talking about general topic video games. Like that was it, like just generally topic video games. And even then we got like, okay, this is a little bit exhausting.
Yeah,
but, like to do it one subject.
It's like you said. It happens with podcasts. I'm not saying like where we hate doing the podcast. It happens with podcasts. It happens with everything. It's like Adam's example. You go to your new favorite restaurant, you can find one, and you have an incredible dish, and you'll eat it, and eventually there'll come a time when you basically kept ordering that same dish at the restaurant. You're like, my taste buds need something a bit different now. Like, there's nothing wrong with this dish. It's obviously still great. It's delicious, but you've eaten it too much, and you need to try something different. And that's what happened with
episodes. Sorry, I just wanted to know how many episodes I did. 155.
That's what I mean. 155 episodes. Like, I did podcasts which got into like some of the 60s and 70s. Like, you feel like the kind of like the fatigue starts settling because it's like the same conversations, but you need to kind of change direction. That's why this podcast has changed direction quite a few times. In terms of, we talk about Don't Know Montreal's game, we talk about other Deck 9 projects, we talk about everything else in between, because you have to refresh what you're talking about, and it adds perspectives, because that's why we keep bringing in other examples of publishers and franchises, because we talk about Life is Strange is in a very, very precarious situation for me, in my eyes. And that might sound a bit strange for other people who think like True Colors did well, but I think True Colors was a little bit more of a divisive entry, in the same vein as like Life is Strange 2 was. I think it was divisive in its own right. And it's kind of like changed all this kind of like, because as I said, and you said it before, Luke Michel, and I definitely don't speak for them, but I'm like, from how I see it, like, I don't think they have any interest in coming back to Life is Strange for the time being.
Mm-mm.
From how I see it as an outsider's perspective, they obviously have a huge amount of love for the series. But if you're telling them that could make a new IP or work on another Life is Strange game, I think I kind of know where they're going to be going with that. Like, you know, you kind of want to try something different. Like, you don't. There are very few times where some developers have worked on a long-standing franchise, Kojima, for example, and it's like it's been able to evolve, change, and kind of like really go in bold new directions. But you work on something for so long, the engine starts kind of like become a bit slow. And I think like that's what's happening with Life is Strange. It needs to basically really innovate in the next game. Like the next game needs to take leaps and bounds forward in terms of single player gameplay. Again, not saying it needs to be something like an Assassin's Creed, like Assassin's Creed, for example. Another example, Adam, mate, I saw for the first time gameplay footage of Valhalla when I was scrolling through TikTok, and I was like, I'm like, is this Assassin's Creed? I'm like, what?
Yeah,
like,
no, it went in a totally different direction. Yeah,
and I saw the comments. It was very divisive. I think the person who's doing it was like saying like in a kind of like we're not putting nostalgic glasses on, but this isn't Assassin's Creed. Obviously, very divided opinions in there.
Oh yeah,
and a lot of people were saying like
Valhalla was very much a dividing line.
Yeah, and some people were saying they really enjoyed Valhalla, but it's not an Assassin's Creed game. And I was like, looking at it, like from the face value, I was like, this is not an Assassin's Creed game. This is not one Assassin's Creed. People want simple things. It's like with me, I always said like with Ubisoft, I was like, please just remake the first Assassin's Creed. That's all I have an interest in right now. Might sound hypocritical, even though I've spoken about remakes, but like that's what my interest is, because I'm like, remake that. Streamlined, simple gameplay, happy days. And what did they do? Here's 4 new Assassin's Creed games. Here's this. So I'm like, and it's the same with like Life is Strange 1. It's like just commit to the series. It's like you basically have a franchise that has a name, it has a universe, it has popularity behind it. Commit to something. Like, don't go back 15 steps like you would with Life is Strange 1. Take all the kind of same beats and then do the same thing again and with different characters. Like, it isn't going to resonate with people. Like, I think like that's the other thing with it. I think like just set yourself with a couple of characters. Like that's why like I'm talking about when we talk about like the VHS kind of like the game that they're working in Montreal, like, and we had all the kind of theories and stuff. Like, I can already picture the kind of idea of what these guys are working on. It's going to be like, and it fits in the mind of like an adventure game in my head, where it's like, and I can see like me exploring certain places and having like kind of like, you know, almost tell me why vibe with like, you know, you kind of like a little bit of clues here, a little bit of this, and a little bit of that, and kind of back and forth. I feel like I'm rambling, but like, I'm still kind of, I'm a little bit more. My expectations have come down a little bit lower now. They're like here, a little bit lower coming into whatever this next game is going to be. It's not as higher as I thought it'd be. Like, I had a bit more higher expectations going to True Colors and hoping it would be something huge and thinking. Then I kind of sat there thinking like, you know, this is not what I wanted. It's like, it's not a terrible game by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not where I was hoping the series would go with leaps and bounds. But the next step for it, if it's going to survive, which franchises do have shelf lives now, and especially with franchises that don't innovate, for me, it's in gameplay, because you can't really change the story at this point. They've changed so many parts of the story. Like, they've dropped the episodic formula, more or less. They should probably just skip that completely and just go with chapters 1, 2, 3, and then just do that as the kind of like check markers of it. Like, as you see in a Tarantino film, check marker, done, and go through that kind of formula. Skip that, make a bit more of a substantial story, and lengthwise as well. I think that it was a little bit too short with the story. Yeah. Create an immersive little hub. And I mean, like a little hub, you can make it like a circle and just put all like the entire town in it, and build like mini games in it, little side activities, hobbies, little 1 or 2 couple of side missions, which are meaningful side missions, not just generic ones, but like meaningful ones, which help you expand and the gameplay experience of it. And then go from there. Like, as I said, like, and I think like I don't know how they'll shape the powers and stuff, because it's like that in itself was something else with Alex's power. We didn't really talk about that at first. But Alex's power was a bit different compared to obviously Max's rewind. It didn't have the same kind of like that same impact. But I think the rewind mechanic is a whole different animal in itself.
They definitely tried, but at the same time, it's like,
I do wonder where they go with powers next.
Probably Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Oh, rest in peace to the Green Ranger.
Oh man, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that he was just in my neighborhood Jason, man, I feel awful that I can't remember his full name, but no, he was just here for a book signing. And he looked like really awesome. But
Yeah.
I don't know, like I heard it was suicide. I don't want to say that was
I
for
heard it was
sure.
suicide. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
from the original
that's
report I read from TMZ, it was they said it was suicide.
yeah, I am I mean you can never tell. You can never tell. So I guess it's just kind of like a PSA that like everybody's struggling out there. Always be there for each other. Nobody knows everybody's struggle. So, just understand that everybody's hiding something. So just like ask somebody like, "Hey man, you doing okay?" Just recognize their existence. Just like what I'm saying is just like make sure that you know that people are people, recognize existence, make sure everybody matters in your life, and hopefully we can create a more positive atmosphere. But at the same time, sometimes mental disease is mental disease, and they need to seek help for that. But I don't know, just reach out to
Yeah,
the people that you love. That's
positive
it.
message. Always know that someone there for you. Always know it.
Yeah.
Never think that is thinking so. But I didn't even realize that the Yellow Ranger from my Morphin Power Rangers died at 27. She died in a car crash.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, damn.
Yeah.
Like, god damn, man. I was like, that's yeah. So in itself, I know that's a bit more somber, but reiterating it as well. Definitely seek out help if you are in any kind of mental health position. It's always important to talk to someone. Well, I
Yeah.
think we'll end the topic there.
Yeah.
You happy?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do
Okay.
that.
So, as I said, big long discussion on that. We'll revisit our other topic at some point. But
Yeah.
yes, good intervention there. Adam, spread the arts.
Okay. You want to go first?
I'll let you go first.
Oh, goody. I'm going to shamelessly plug a couple projects that I did. So, as you know, I've been working on music. I did The Essence of Life, but I just dropped a new single on Adam Evolts. If you wanted to check that out, it's called Nova Initia, and it's just a song about change in life. That's I did The Essence of Life, and there's definitely some callbacks to The Essence of Life. But my new album that I'm currently working on, it's changing. There's something new to it. I don't want to stick to that same format that I did before. And you can hear this great little piece from Peter Millikan, who's from Oxford University. He's a professor of philosophy at Oxford. And he talks a little bit about the human condition and change. And that's really what I wanted to put out with this track. But with that, while I'm working on this album, I want to just, have fun with music again, because my music can get pretty depressing. So with that change, with all of that album work, I started a new side project. Hopefully it's on Spotify as we speak. It's on Apple Music now. It's on TikTok if you want to use the track. But I started a new side project called Castor Garden. CASTOR Garden. And it's a new side project about lo-fi music. And I'm just going to be having fun with it. I'm not going to take it seriously. The first track that I have on it now is called Hey There Santa. And it's just like a lo-fi Christmas beat where Santa's asking you if you've been naughty or nice. It's just stupid. The next track I'm working on is going to be even dumber. So I'm really just going to have fun with lo-fi music just to like, kind of get my musical flow going with that. So if you're into fun lo-fi music, check out Castor Garden. That's going to be my side project. And then check out Nova Initia on Adam Evolts. But that's my spread the arts.
Very nice shout. I'm going to
Yeah.
recommend Robot Chicken, because I've been watching it again.
Yeah. Are they
recently.
still making new episodes?
I'm not sure if they're still going. It's at 10 seasons.
I was about to say, are you telling me that they're still making Robot Chicken?
No, it's 11 seasons. Sorry.
Holy crap.
August 2020, a cancellation of the Venture Bros is Adult Swim's longest running series, both in terms of years and episodes. 220 episodes, 11 seasons. I can't tell if it's still running or not.
Yeah.
It's still running.
Holy cow.
think, well, IMDb saying it's still running.
Yeah. Oh my god. And that's Seth Green's project, yeah.
Yeah, Seth Green, Matthew
Holy
Senrich. Like,
crap.
yeah, so
Dude.
I don't know if it's still running, actually. I think like the last couple of... oh, wait. No, movie why Adult Swim's Robot Chicken continues to be so successful. It must still be going on. It must still be going on. Jesus Christ.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm saying that, though. Look at some of the shows that continue to go on, though. Like, Simpsons is like... Jesus, well, Simpsons in itself is a different animal. Like, Family Guy, South Park, but like they've had to reinvent themselves, like really reinvent themselves. Like, again, like it goes back to our conversation about Life is Strange. Like these series, like long-standing ones, had to reinvent themselves for better or worse. Yeah. The Simpsons is an awful example of like how badly it can go if you continue to linger on. But yeah, I would recommend Robot Chicken. I think like it's one of those kind of like, for me, it's not like top tier comedy in terms of like, for me, like the standouts. I always say like my go-to for anyone is South Park. Like I think like that is the peak of comedy for me in terms of the animated versions of things. Like when you, I think I always say to people, like, there's a time in life where you basically understand what South Park is and you really appreciate it for what it is. And like, Robot Chicken is like a good starting point for if you just know your culture with like different things that have happened. And if I'm feeding on old school nostalgia at the minute. So like, started binging some of the early episodes from the first season again. Very short. I think the first episode I watched, I forgot it was like 11 minutes. It's 11 minutes long. And it's like different parodies. Very short, very entertaining. Kind of gives you an insight. Obviously, Seth Green from Family Guy. Everyone knows Seth Green. So we'll recommend if you've never watched it. It's something to kind of binge through and appreciate. And then obviously work your way through the other stuff. Family Guy, South Park, American Dad, Simpsons. Early stuff more so for all the others. South Park, get up to date. It's a great show. But yeah, that'll be my recommendation. I'm not going to expand into it too much, but like I'm going to keep it simple for that. But yeah, we're at the end of the show. So obviously, thank you for joining us. If you are new here, again, please do leave a subscribe, like, turn on notifications, share with your friends. It helps you keep up to date with our content, and StrangeCast is available on all podcast services. Stay tuned with us. Obviously, it's been a bit of a slow year. My schedule is packed until the end of the year, and hopefully in 2023 there'll be a bit more Life After Strange, kind of more content on this channel. We're kind of just like lumbering a little bit to the finish line. But as I said, stay tuned with us. We are keeping StrangeCast going. We are trying to get guests on here as well in between it. But in the meantime, let us know your thoughts. Let us know where you want Life is Strange to go. Do you agree with us? Do you think we're stupid? Do you think obviously be a bit kind, but tell us what you think in the comments anyway. But until then, take care. We'll see you in the next StrangeCast.
Peace.